It's Jack Pinter.
Matthew, great to see you.
How are you today? Is your day running smoothly?
My day, like almost all my days now in lockdown, I would describe as workus interruptus. They're just these constant interruptions. I mean, I've got a 14-year-old at home. He popped in this morning. Dad, I've got some DT homework. It's like, okay, okay. 30 minutes later, he's like, Dad, I'm working on my DT homework. It's about this. It's like, okay, okay, great. Dad, I finished my DT homework. And just a moment ago, my son just popped in the room again and said, Dad, I need to talk to you about my DT homework. So that's at least over the course of the day so far, at least 4 or 5 times. I'm concentrating. I'm trying to focus on what I'm doing, and this interruption comes in, and we know from lots of studies that it's very, very difficult to sort of re-engage with what you're thinking about, what you're concentrating on, with all these interruptions.
That's right. Was it 15 minutes to get down to your inner whispered truth? And then when you interrupted, you have to start that whole process again. So, how would you classify that? Disruption, interruption, nuisance, loving
Well,
care?
yeah, then that's a good question. I think when we think of what the interruption is, it's my son saying, "I'm trying to do my homework." I suppose I should welcome that, and I guess this brings up the whole question: is how we view an interruption. And sometimes, I guess, when we're choosing it for ourselves, an interruption can be a wonderful thing. We have this famous Archimedes story of he's in the bath and he finally figures out what buoyancy is and how he can use this to measure the density of metals. He runs down the street naked saying, Eureka, I have it, I found it. So there are these fabulous opportunities for insight and new thinking when we do face interruptions. But I think it's much easier when we choose them ourselves.
Exactly, which brings us to the crazy we're in now. So we didn't choose this. So how are you framing the now, this crazy thing? An interruption or something else?
Well, I guess the question is this an interruption? Are things going to go back to normal, or
Yeah,
what some
yeah,
sort of normal of what they've been before? Or is this actually a disruption? Are we never going to go back to the world that
yeah.
was earlier? And are we going to have to survive in kind of a different business environment, a different marketplace? And I guess what I'm wondering is, how do I plan for both? How do I plan for interruption if it's going to be an interruption? And how do I also plan for maybe the fact that this isn't an interruption, it's a real disruption, and things will never be quite the same?
So I love that distinction. So let's split that up. There's probably a sort of third way as well. So let's say if this is just a pause, and it is going to go back to the old normal. What will you what have you been missing in your love to return to? Is there something fairly obvious there?
Well, I think a lot of my work is delivering training, delivering learning and development. It's that just that face-to-face connection with people,
Yes.
and that feeling of being in a room with other people. And I think a lot of my work means that I'm meeting people for the first time,
Yeah.
working with them quite intimately, quite intensely on things that are quite core to them as individuals. And that's just not happening. I mean, it's happening a little bit on Zoom, but you just don't get that same feeling for people. Being in the same room with people, and I think that's something that I'm looking forward, that I'm hoping
Yeah.
is just something that's been interrupted and that will return, and I do have faith that it will.
No, exactly. Those sidebars, those spontaneous moments, and those networking little things. When you or I are on a course in a classroom at a hotel, wherever, over 1 or 2 days, it is those little incidents that you actually remember, and they can build into some longer term relationships and all sorts. No, sounds good. So,
Absolutely.
so we wish for something to return. What do you wish will not return? Is there something on the dark list that you don't want to go back?
Well, I suppose what I'm wondering is, with if what's not going to return is this endless traveling, this
Yeah,
endless long
yeah,
haul traveling,
yeah,
endless hours on planes, and as we know, that the time that you're not necessarily being paid for,
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and time away from home. So although I enjoy that, I'm just wondering if maybe there'll be a little bit less of that, and maybe that's something I won't miss so much. That endless busyness, that continual sense of moving from one place to another.
No, exactly. I mean, last year I must have done 20 pure travel days, one for no money. That's 10% of my year. Whilst I like all that stuff, uh, it's not economic and it's not necessarily refreshing either. It's different, so maybe we've got to get our spontaneous input some other way. So let's get on to
Mm.
disruption. What's the possibility here? What do we want to change? What do we not want to go back to the old normal? Is there anything there?
Sure. Sure, and I think what we need to do in this interruption phase, if it is indeed an interruption phase, is first of all enjoy it. Let's enjoy this time that we have. I mean, I'm doing lots of writing, lots of things that I wouldn't have had time for before. So enjoy the interruption. But I think it's absolutely also necessary for me, and probably for everyone to a certain extent, to prepare for the fact that this might be a real disruption. And what does that mean? What does that mean for the delivery of services and professional services in this market? And I know that probably like you, Matthew, I'm used to selling myself as 1 day, as 2 days, as 3 days, as 5 days. I mean, maybe occasionally as a half day. And of course, what the principles of creative disruption say: hey, listen, there's a opportunity to bring your services to more people, and that maybe this is actually just selling this in smaller chunks. Is this kind of idea of professional services on demand, selling things in 60-minute chunks, in 90-minute chunks? And I think that that it requires a little bit of creative thinking, but it also opens up potentially a whole another swathe of a marketplace that I never really considered before. And it may be the only market that's left because the market has been completely disrupted. Or if this is just an interruption, not only will I have that smaller part of the
Yeah,
market, but I'll
yeah.
hopefully I'll also have that stuff that I'll return to. So that's what I'm thinking.
Well, and let's just riff on that. I mean, that's, you have stream A income, which may be the whole day. There's stream B income, or that could be almost a demonstration idea, which builds to something else. I know you put me on to an absolute genius, Clay Christensen, and he's talking about this, isn't he? Going from this exclusive and rich market to something which is more bite sized. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I suppose what he's saying is that the perils of just selling these high margin,
Yeah,
top
yeah,
end services or goods, and what happens is the bottom of the end of the market gets taken away from you with someone who will do it cheaper
yeah,
and more efficiently, and then suddenly they move up the ladder and they take a little bit another chunk out of your business and then another chunk out of your
yeah,
business until it's absolutely gone. And one of the things I found, I do a lot of coaching, and I've just started working for a company that's selling coaching in 30-minute segments to sort of young managers. We used to think of coaching as like executive coaching, like only the really high up people can afford this or get it. And now there's enters into the market that sees things a completely different way, selling things in bite-sized chunks to a greater number of people. And of course, that's central to Clay Christensen's argument: is
yeah.
that by being disruptive, you can bring more people into the marketplace that never would have bought any services before.
No, exactly. So you're going from this exclusive one IBM per town, one huge mammoth machine, to 50 computers in everyone's home. So we even go beyond what Bill Gates was talking about. His mission statement in the 80s was a computer in every home. Well, now you've got three in the kitchen or one in the Hoover. So it's a different thing. So what's the challenge for, or the opportunity for the viewer here? What can they do? What can they get behind?
Yeah, and I guess what the what you can consider is what could you chunk in small chunks if you're in professional services. What's something small that you could sell? And it could be that you take something big that you've provided and just chop it up into little consumable bits, or you can create something actually that maybe you never thought was like a whole thing, but can be a whole 60-minute thing. It never was a whole day thing. I know that I personally am delivering lots of shorter programs on
Yeah.
stuff that I probably wouldn't have a day's material on, but I can do in 90 minutes quite effectively.
We're back to you and me bluffing for a living, aren't we?
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
so really, the challenge to the viewer is to become the on-demand professional.
Mm. And yeah, and just to think about, if this is disruption, then this is what you're going to have, and this is going to be the future for you if you want to continue with what you're doing. And if it is just an interruption, it's just another string to your bow that you can use in the future. And you may find, as we've spoken about before, is that some things may work better in these
Yeah,
smaller chunks, these smaller learning chunks. That when we're delivering these programs, Matthew, and it comes to 3:30, and people are fading and fading and fading, and you think, oh my gosh, we got another 2.5 hours of content to deliver. Maybe in this smaller bite size way of organizing things, maybe this is actually better for the modern professional who again has a shorter attention span. It's looking more for small chunks of takeaway things that they can just maybe immediately use and immediately apply. I don't know. It's just
uh,
interesting to think of
I
thinking
love
that
it.
way.
It's not the Tudor banquet with the bird within the bird within the bird within the bird. It's street food.
Absolutely, street food's a great analogy for that. Something you can just pick up along that's where you want it to be.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
again, it's you turn on your computer and we're there. We're there, and we're available. People are available, and it is a kind of on demand, as you say.
No, exactly. We think of Uncle Reed, LinkedIn, giving us a newspaper to use. We look at here YouTube giving us a TV channel to construct. So we can chunk up what we're doing. We are chunking up what we're doing and delivering it to where you are, dear viewer. What can you do which is of equivalence? So do you want to summarize that? Do you want to give our viewers a challenge, Jack?
Yeah. Okay. So here, what is the smallest viable thing that you can create? That's and you can certainly put it in the comments below. But or just think about that. If I was going to create something that was short, how short could it be, and what value would it offer? So that's my challenge: is to really kind of uh, just what can you create that is absolutely essential in the smallest amount of time? I
Love
think
it.
that'd be an interesting challenge for you.
People at Airbus are going, A4 into a dart. Fantastic. Jack Pinter, philosopher, father, teacher, home educator, and all round superstar. Thank you so much for this. Maybe we'll see you again in a couple of days' time. Viewers, thank you for your loyalty, your subscriptions, your sharing, your likes, your comments, the rest of it. Keep on going. And what can you do to chunk it all down and be an on demand professional? We'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. See ya.
All right. Bye.